Indian designers juggle a lot with complexity. They're naturally kind of born with that. Don't get caught up in overthinking the problem. I do see this with a lot of very young designers, especially. Their research phase, they overanalyze. And at some point of time, you'll say that, boss, I have nothing more to teach you. Baby, it's okay for you to go outside also.
Yeah.
Because you care about that person growing more than retaining them and stunting their growth and making them a bonsai in your company.
Of course.
And that's what good leaders do.
Hey guys, welcome to the second season of Behind the Screens. Today I have someone very special with me, Jay Dutta. He's one of the most well-known voices in the Indian leadership circle. He's been in this industry for over 3 decades now. He's the founder of DesignUp, which is one of the most globally influential design in tech conference. He is now the global head of UX practice at Deutsche Bank. Previously, he's headed design teams for Flipkart, MakeMyTrip, Adobe, and I can keep going on. He's been influential in shaping platforms like Aarogya Setu, something that helped millions during COVID. And Jay brings a rare mix of design systems thinking, storytelling, and a lot of cultural context to the entire craft of design. With that, welcome to Behind the Screens, Season 2, Jay. And it is a beautiful night today. It's raining. We have some good backdrop, I believe. So thank you for being with us today and very happy that you're here.
So thank you for having me. And I think it's, as you mentioned, it's an amazing evening in Bangalore. There is, unfortunately, you can't see the ambience of the place. Lots of rains. It's a perfect day to start a meditation kind of thing. But we are not going to do that. Over to you.
All right. Jay, I'm going to directly get into the conversation.
Yeah.
I am going to ask you very direct, straight up questions.
Sure,
I would love for you to answer them. And please take your time if anything where you need to.
Yeah.
One of the first questions I have is that, Jay, you often use the word taming chaos. I have seen that across your website and a couple of other places. What does taming chaos actually mean?
I think that's a very interesting nuance to start with. Okay. And there are 2 kinds of chaos. One chaos happens in your mind. The other chaos happens outside your mind. But I think the one inside your mind is the most important because chaos will always happen. You will have deadlines, you will have so many things, you have lack of clarity. So there is chaos. You are not sure, your deadline is approaching, you got to get to the client. And chaos happens to everyone. I mean, from designers to product managers to the people who are out on the front line selling or liaising with the clients. And the clients themselves will because the clients themselves will have a lot of pressure in terms of that. So there is that sort of a chaos. And when you have a clear mind, where you can sort of break it down into what's happening and what can I do, chances are that 80% of things are out of your control. To be able to understand what is the 20% things or 5% things that you control and what can you do about it, that is taming the chaos inside and outside. And that for me is very important. I mean, I've been talking more and more about the quality of your life depends upon the quality of your decisions, your choices. And the quality of your choices and decisions is influenced by the way you think. And that is the internal weather system that you have. Whatever is happening outside, how do you control your internal system? There may be, if there is chaos outside and chaos inside, it is going to be a meltdown. That's where I come back to. I mean, how can you lead with clarity? How can you calm the voices in your head? It's almost like a radio station going on.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
They keep on like, or the other one is like doom scrolling in your head.
Correct.
Like you're jumping back and forth, opinions, this, he said that, she said that.
Yeah.
Boom, 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 you're just going on. How do you calm that internal critique, radio station, and deal with that chaos inside to deal with the chaos outside?
Yeah.
That's pretty much.
No, that's actually very profound in all honesty. It reminds me of something. When you talk about the voice in the head, right?
Yeah.
I was reading a book very recently, I think in the last 3 months maybe. I don't read a lot of books. Uh, where it said that, hey, you know what? I'll give you a simple exercise.
Yeah.
Just stay quiet for a second and just try saying hello in your mind, and your mind is gonna say that hello.
Right, yeah.
And that is essentially the voice that keeps talking in your head all the
Yeah,
time, right?
yeah.
So I completely get that. But what I want to know, Jay, from you is, have you ever used this methodology, let's call it that maybe, to tame chaos in a situation, or has it ever led to a breakthrough before?
Yeah, it's always kind of something that maybe when I was younger, maybe in the first few years of this thing, I was part of the chaos. I went with the flow and all of that. But when you start to slowly detach and stand a little apart and look at it, I think you can do a lot more thinking around the problem that you are trying to solve. There are many, many instances where you break down a problem. So, for example, if I were to take the idea about MakeMyTrip, for instance, in MakeMyTrip, the idea was that hey, you got to make a better app, better website, etc., etc. Now, what does better mean? Like everyone is, this is the thing. I
Yeah.
want marketing wants this, and product wants this, and design wants that, and tech says, hey, this is all outdated. We need to kind of, while you're doing it, let's get the tech stack up and running.
Yeah.
The question is, what is it that you are trying to do? And the clarity which will strike you is that all of these agendas are great, including
Yeah.
design's own agenda.
Yeah.
But the agenda really should be about the user.
Green.
And then when you calm it down and you say, okay, hang on, what is the user saying? What is the user agenda? And I remember talking, one of the underlying phrases which I used, which I guess appealed a lot to the founders and the CEO and the chairman at that point of time, is that we use the word make my trip, but there is no my in that. Where is that sense of personalization?
No,
Where is
that's
that
actually
my?
beautiful.
And they said, yeah, damn, that's right. And then suddenly the agenda shifts from, okay, this is my tech agenda, this is my design agenda, this is my product agenda, to let's talk about the user
Yeah.
and their agenda. We have to represent them.
Yeah.
So I think these comes in the moments of clarity when you calm the chaos and you say, okay, we got so much to do and we have 6 months and we got to break everything apart and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, there are many, many such instances which are there.
Of course, I genuinely like that example. Honestly, it is actually true. It was so easy for you to just go and say, but that it was not actually easy.
Yeah.
It comes from a deeper thought process.
Right.
I'll go to the next question, Jay.
Yep.
You've worked in the industry for 3 decades now. You've been in this industry in India at least when design maturity was not even a word or a buzzword for that matter. How have things evolved since the last 3 decades?
So half of my life I spent outside India, and half of my working life I spent outside of India. So I saw what maturity means, where design has a point of view and design is taken seriously and design has a say in production and final kind of go-to-market strategies, etc., etc.
Correct.
I saw a lot of different sides to design. Now, when we look at the world of UX and digital product design, that maturity is relatively rare. But when I look at different phases of design have had different kind of rise, you might say, or phases in the spotlight. So when you think about 3 decades back, industrial design,
Yeah.
which also was known as product design before
Yeah,
digital product
exactly.
design came in, did have its moment in the sun because we were building a lot of stuff. If you think about in terms of from TVS to Titan to HMT and a whole bunch of things, these are all physical product
Yeah.
design, right? When you look at advertising was a big user of design, not in that direct sense,
Yeah.
but if you look at things like MTV,
Yeah.
that was a big user of design. If you look at animation and filmmaking,
Yeah.
that again was so they had their moments in the spotlight in the sun,
Yeah.
where design had a certain role and a certain say.
Yeah.
At those point of time, UX was still very nascent. There was no maturity, or no one taking UX very seriously.
Huh.
One of the early phases was, and this is when I was outside India, and I'm talking about 2000, roughly in the year 99, 98, 99, 2000, the word UX had already been coined, but was not being used.
Yeah.
It was not a currency kind of in circulation.
Yeah.
Now, the typical words that I used to encounter in London, in Boston, and other places that I used to work was things like interaction design, IXD was the one, human-computer interface or human-computer design, stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Now, in India, it was web design.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that was the one. And they would like, okay, do something. Increasingly, people realized, and this happened in the B2B side of things,
Yeah.
where people realized that this also is important because there's a productivity gain, there is a reduction in terms of error, et cetera, et cetera. Some of the very first UX sort of success stories were in the B2B call center operations, which was the back end systems which happened in India.
Yeah.
The front end or the people out there would have been in Netherlands or wherever they were. But your back office was here in Hyderabad or Bangalore or Gurgaon or one of these places.
Yeah.
And that is where the genesis of UX is.
Yeah.
Infosys was another one of them, which was an early,
Yeah.
which is finance, banking, et cetera, that they used to build,
Yeah.
right? Now, I was part of the second phase of it, which is when I came back to India, Adobe was one of them.
Yeah.
And in Adobe, people first used to ask me, so you do the packaging for the dabba banate ho aap, wo design karte ho for the software, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, you got to design, someone's got to design the software, right?
Yeah.
And they just didn't know. I mean, what does it mean to use a different design software? So that was the rise of interaction design and stuff like that. We used to call it XD, Experience Design in Adobe, which later got called XD, the product
Adobe.
kind of thing. And slowly, I think that maturity went. The third phase was when I was in the VC world. And the initial phase of the VC world was that जो भी है वहाँ पे in West Coast, just make a replica of that in India. वहाँ पे ये है, तो Netflix का Indian version क्या है?
Yeah.
And then slowly what happened is a bunch of entrepreneurs came in. They said that we don't want to do the X of US in India.
Yeah.
We want to do India का कुछ बनाते हैं.
Correct.
So if you look at Zomato, Swiggy, and the whole bunch of them, there are so many great examples out there. They said we are going to make it for India, in India, and by Indians.
Yeah.
And that is when they started experimenting. The initial one was, of course, what is the Western way of like UX? But slowly with that came the Indian kind of sort of bits and pieces that you see. Stuff like Flipkart's cash on delivery, COD.
Yeah.
Great, fantastic example of a flow of UX or whatever you call it kind of thing, where you're thinking about very Indian ways of doing things.
Yeah.
And slowly the whole idea about design can play a role front and center started coming about. So yeah, that's where the maturity is. Now we are in the fourth era where things have become very mature and people are saying, hey, people are not changing stuff and they're just changing the front end.
Yeah.
But they're not changing the fundamental flow.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's an interesting phase to be.
No, that's absolutely lovely. I think we'll get to the fourth phase when I'm going to talk a little bit about AI in the latter parts. But I would love to know your takes on that. That being said, what I would love to know from you, Jay, is since you've been in this industry for 3 decades and you've worked across companies in different domains, Adobe, MakeMyTrip, very different domains.
Yeah.
What is that one problem in design leadership that remains constant regardless of the company or the industry?
So I think I would call it like, I'll probably explode that one into like a 3-body problems.
Love it. Love it. More is always better.
Yeah. So I think there are 2 parts to it. One is about vision and execution, which is more to do with the leadership facing the business. And of course, it's an internal problem equally as well. The third problem is about relevance, motivation, etc., which is in more internal facing. So the leader with the people, his or her people, which is designers and product people and so on and so forth. The other one is the design leader with maybe clients, with maybe the business, with maybe internal customers who are not connected with design or product. Let's say marketing, for example.
Yeah.
Right? Now, the push and pull between vision and execution is always there.
Okay.
Initially, it's about executing at high speed, and jo bola tha, aapne kar diya. You said this, you executed. Then people begin to get tired and say, all that is great, but where do you want to take us? What's next? And all senior leaders love that. Show me the next shiny thing. Show me where will you take it.
Mm.
A lot of leaders are good with the execution, but they fall short in the vision. There are some who are very good with the vision, but fall short with the execution.
Mm.
As if that was not enough, there is that internal relevance in the motivation bit,
Yeah.
which is how do you keep your people motivated and relevant for the job at hand, which is both the vision and execution. Now, a leader might realize that internally, I have a team of, let's say, 50 people,
Okay.
out of which maybe 40 are great for execution, but I need that 10 people who are great for the vision. I myself cannot give the vision completely on my own, but it is a shared vision that we can bring together.
Yeah.
And these are the sort of problems that they keep juggling with.
Mm.
If you get good at one and not balance the two, you are in trouble. Because if you are good with, let's say, vision, but you are not connected with your people, you're not connected with unka relevance kya hai? Because they also need to grow, they also need to learn. They will learn from you. After a certain point, you will not be able to teach them much. They will learn from each other.
Yeah.
They will look at something beyond all of that. So how do you keep them relevant and growing? And at some point of time, you'll say that, boss, I have nothing more to teach you. Baby, it's okay for you to go outside also.
Yeah.
Because you care about that person growing more than retaining them and stunting their growth and
Yeah.
making them a bonsai in your company.
Of course.
And that's what good leaders do. They don't make bonsais in their
Yeah.
organizations, right? That's the internal part of it.
Wow.
Outside is that vision and the execution.
Wow, lovely. I'm actually curious, Jay, to know maybe one short example
Yeah.
on how you keep someone in your team relevant. That'll be good to know.
Okay, so I think 2-3 things. One is, of course, they got to do the work. And all organizations will judge you by whatever performance matrix, KRAs, this KPIs, whatever you call them, will be key, what did you deliver?
Yeah.
And how was the delivery and matrix and all of that, right?
Yeah.
That's great. That is good for, but it only kind of helps people grow and essentially align with the organization thing.
Yeah.
Now, whether it's client or internal, external, whatever that is, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean the person is growing.
Yeah.
Today, I think everyone is talking a lot about taste. Now, the taste has been something which has been always part of our, like from my design school, National Institute of Design, NID, it was a given that you got to develop a fairly diverse taste and that informs your work per se. Now, how do you build that? How do you kind of keep yourself relevant? Those comes from outside that circle, that
Yeah.
limited circle of organization, KPIs and deliveries and executions on a part of it. Some of the things which I have done in the past is given them a fun project to work on.
Oh.
And one of my favorite fun projects, which we used to do at Adobe days, also was something called dysfunctional calendar.
Okay.
So at the end of every year, we would all make a calendar which was dysfunctional. Because we're doing very functional stuff, I mean, that's what we do. But how do you get yourself out of that system and you say, make something dysfunctional?
Yeah.
The best people would actually fail at that. Because they've never thought about that, right?
Yeah.
It's like, make a bad design. Kind of,
Yeah.
right? Or let's go see a film together. Or let's do something different.
Yeah.
Let's go to conferences. I've been a conference buff all my life. I've gone to conferences. I've spoken at so many conferences. And I find that is where you meet people, you get stimulated, you learn so many things.
Yeah.
Some of it may be useless, some of it may be useful. It essentially is like brushing your teeth with a big brush kind of
Yeah.
once in a year
Yeah.
and gets all refreshed with things. You also meet other people and see what the hell are they doing, kind
Yeah.
of. What's happening with other people.
Yeah.
Because you cannot just kind of say, okay, what is my competition doing and what am I doing?
Yeah.
You just can't live with that. You
Yeah.
have to expand your skill. So these are some of the examples I would give.
No, that's lovely. I think I truly believe that people who may not be going to conferences should go to conferences at least once a year or twice a year, whenever they can, even if it's small or big. Because personally, I've been at DesignUp and I genuinely enjoyed my time over there, meeting a few
Great,
folks.
yeah.
But more about it in our later conversation. I'm
Sure.
going to ask you about that.
Sure.
Yeah, I want to ask a question about how, when organizations become larger, uh, we sometimes believe that they are not able to keep that creative spark alive. So my question is very straightforward. When organizations become larger, innovation actually starts getting suppressed. How do you, as a leader, ensure that that does not happen?
So, I mean, as you mentioned earlier, also, I worked with all sorts of companies of all sizes. I've run my own design studio in Manchester, which was a very small studio. And I personally love small studios. I don't like the big things.
Yeah.
But I've worked with companies who are 100,000 spread over 120 countries and so on. Now, you're absolutely right. I think as you are part of a larger and larger company, you get to do smaller and smaller things. It's almost like you're manufacturing just this little bit, and someone will add to it, and it will become one huge product.
Exactly.
But you're just going to do that thing, and you feel like a cog in the wheel.
Yeah.
And there are ways to fight back, and maybe fight back is a harsh word.
Yeah.
But the idea would be, how do you reclaim your freedom, your sense of creativity? It's about reclaiming that back. Now, there are many things that you could do. One is, of course, one is to stop wallowing in the negativity of, I'm just doing this bit. And the fact is that you're contributing, and you're contributing to something much larger. Just that
Yeah.
you cannot see it. In a small studio, you can see you did something and it went to the client, and
Yeah,
that
of
throughput
course.
is very quick.
Yeah.
This is what designers enjoy in their hearts, right?
Yeah.
It's very transparent. You did something, it got out. Either it went out exactly as you wanted or it didn't, but एक result है. कुछ
Yeah.
तो निकला उसमें से, right?
Yeah.
In a large organization, you slowly start to lose track of it.
Exactly.
And you don't know what happened to that feature which you did
6
which
months back.
6 months later. It got used somewhere in Mexico, but you did not even know it because you did not know the language. So it just
Yeah.
goes into a vacuum.
Yeah.
right? So anyway, I think the way to reclaim it is to do something for yourself, is
Okay.
to create something. Now, typically what we think in terms of creativity, we have equated it with putting it out there. If I've created something, it has to be on Instagram or somewhere or X or Y or Z. It doesn't have to be. You can do sketches for yourself, you can do paintings for yourself, you can write stories for yourself. It's almost like dancing when no one is watching,
Yeah.
sort of equivalent.
Yeah.
Because you have to express yourself creatively.
Yeah.
And this is something my wife keeps telling me once in a while. Oh, this week went by, I didn't sing, I didn't do this, I didn't draw, I didn't paint, I didn't write. I need to express, somewhere I need to sort of express my creative self.
Yeah.
Right? I did a lot of work,
Yeah.
but that work is not expression.
Yeah. It's not expensive.
I need to give voice to the inner creative spirit that I have.
Yeah.
Sometimes we go on travel, and then typical thing is that you will put pictures out there on Instagram or somewhere.
Yeah.
But what if you sketch? What if you made notes? What if you collected something? I think inherently we want to make something.
Yeah.
We want to feel that we did a dig in the universe. We
Yeah.
made some effect out there.
Of course.
For me, DesignUp was one way of doing it.
Yeah.
But DesignUp, of course, has grown very huge, but it need not have been huge also.
Yeah.
I would have still loved DesignUp for, even if it was like 30 people coming to a small event kind of thing. That also is fine.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to do something where I take ownership, responsibility, accountability.
Yeah.
If something goes wrong, it's my problem.
Yeah.
No one is telling me, there's no boss telling me that do it this way.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think something for which you're responsible, accountable, that you will put out in the world, whether people appreciate it or not, but
Yeah.
you did your best.
Perfect. No, that's a very philosophical answer. Honestly, I did not expect that, in all honesty. I have a question on failures, because
Right.
I think since you talk about this and it sparked it up, a lot of people are afraid of failures. But I want you to tell me, what's one design failure or one failure in general in your life that you still stings a little, that you still carry till today?
So I think the good part is that I don't carry too many things.
Lovely.
I carry a lot of learnings,
Yeah.
but I don't carry regrets really, kind of. So Again, I think I had a charming life. I've traveled the world. I've seen so many things, being part of so many. A colleague of mine in Adobe told me this beautiful thing, which I've remembered always. He was leaving, and in his farewell note, he had written that, it was very beautiful. It's always stayed with me. We write our work on water. What we write today is gone tomorrow. So, there will come a time when people will not even remember ये आरोग्य सेतु क्या था, ये credit क्या था, ये कौन क्या था. It doesn't matter, kind of thing. Whatever I worked on will just be gone. If you think about the greats of like 50 years ago in film, no one today might even remember kind of like who was Devanand or who was that. But they were huge people in their times, right? So we are not even like a thousandth of those their kind of stature or scale or any of these kind of things. So I think in that sense, I don't really carry too much regrets as a baggage per se. Actually, I don't. I have had a huge share of my failures. And in some ways, I feel that I've invited a lot of those failures in a sense that I took risks. And this is why I keep talking about the quality of your life is basis the quality of your decisions, the quality of your choices.
Yeah.
And I have been stupid enough to make lot of wrong decisions, lot of wrong choices. I had an amazing job in Bristol, and after 9/11, the company I used to work for completely folded up. So all of us lost our jobs, including the HR guy who was handing out our pink slips. He also knew he had to go. It was almost like, a very karmic cycle that came through, that he knew that his job is also, he will be the last guy to go out of the door. Of thing, right? Now, could I have predicted? No one could have predicted 9/11. It was like the most shocking thing at that point in time, right? So, in a way, it was not a wrong choice, but it was a wrong timing. It taught me something. I went back to the UK again, started my own company. 2008 recession hit. I had to wrap up my entire company again. It was a beautiful studio between Old Trafford Cricket Stadium and Football Stadium, and later we relocated to the Salford Quays. Beautiful water all around and all of that. I do miss it, but at the same time, yes, it's in the past. It's a learning. It's done with kind of thing, right? What could have our control? Again, going back to the whole idea of what could have influenced and control? Nothing.
Nothing.
I mean, people were losing homes. People were losing so many things. My loss was relatively less kind of thing, negligible kind of. I had an option. I came back to India at that point of time. My ex-boss told me, what the hell are you doing in UK? There are things to be done here. There are airports to be done here, she said.
Yeah.
And I came back to the Bangalore airport. So I think that's like, wow, I never thought. Yeah.
So, Jay, next few questions, I'm going to ask more about your leadership, and I would love to know what your takes on that are.
Sure.
So, the first question goes as, you've built a lot of mature teams from the ground up. What's the first signal that tells you that, okay, now my team is ready to scale?
I think teams are never really ready to scale. It's usually the external pressure, and by external pressure, I mean the organization pressure and so on and so forth, which tells you that it is time to scale. It may be a period of pain that as teams scale, they will go through the pain of kind of readjusting and, what do you do with so many people? But the pull, it's not a push, but it's more of a pull, which comes from business. And they're actually, the first signal is that what you're doing is relevant for the organization. So if I think about Adobe, if I think about MakeMyTrip, if I think about all these kind of organizations, actually Adobe and MakeMyTrip are very good examples because what we were doing was relevant and it was making sense. They could have the confidence in the output of the designers. And so we started scaling. So a bunch of new people came in very, very quickly. So for example, Srinath was one of them. We hired a whole bunch of people because what we were doing was being accepted by engineering, was accepted by users eventually, right?
Yeah.
Flipkart was a different story where the teams already existed. It was a consolidation process. Suddenly I would realize, there are 15 people in some team. And they would say, hey, why don't these people start reporting into you?
Yeah.
But that is not ideal because each one is a very siloed unit trying to reshape the thing. So, long story short,
Yeah.
it's more the organization that pulls
Yeah.
rather than you push for it.
But I believe from what I can take away is that when you start seeing organizational success,
Yeah.
that is when it should be your first signal that okay, now I probably can scale a little more than I'm right now.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
All right. So my next question to you, Jay, is more about leadership and AI. How does someone like Jay actually stay relevant in a world that's going to be taken over by AI, apparently?
The AI is coming.
Yeah, exactly.
So, whereas there's a lot of fear about AI taking jobs, etc., and what is very interesting, I see with a lot of people who are very senior and who've been in the business for a long time, is that increasingly what we have got is deep context or the ability to question and understand the context much faster and able to tell stories. That's very important. Understand context, tell stories, manage teams. It's just that it seems that some of the teams are not going to be human. And in those kind of scenarios, people like me and many others stand a good chance, stand a better chance.
Yeah.
I was telling one of my former bosses that, it's like you will be commanding an army of AI.
Yeah.
And the only difference is that these guys are not going to eat, drink, sleep.
Yeah.
Whatever you tell them at any point of time, you're not going to they are not going to decline you at any point of time. So in some ways scary, in some ways not exciting as working with humans,
Yeah.
slightly more predictable, but then the creativity is not as crazily unpredictable and therefore the fun part of it. But I think the older guys suddenly find themselves more relevant in today's world. So
Wow,
that's my take.
that's a very different take, honestly. Where it's first time where someone says that someone who's older is actually feeling more relevant than the younger ones, and they're less afraid than the people who are younger.
Right. That's my take pretty much.
No, I completely understand where you come from. So, Jay, when we actually spoke the last time, you told me how you had hired Srinath, who now heads the design team at Swiggy, and you were also somewhere going to work with Harish, who now heads the design and marketing at Cred. So it means you've been there for like 3 decades now. I want to understand what does it take to actually stay relevant, and how do you not get disillusioned?
Right. I think one probably is my sense of optimism and the wider perspective, the meta level at which I see things. Again, I've been really fortunate to work with people like Srinath. I remember being in Phil Clevenger, who was then with me at Adobe. We hired Srinath, very young, fresh guy, amazing talent. And again, you see what he has done over the years. Someone like people like Srinath, people like Ranga, so many people that I've had a chance to work with, and some people with whom I'd never had the chance to work with, like Jayant Tiwari, for example, or someone like that. They sort of inspire you because they do something very interesting, and you say, "Wow, this is very nice." That's one way to sort of really keep yourself fresh and relevant. You look at the work of a lot of very, very young people who are probably younger to you by 2 decades. And you look at the work and say, wow, I mean, this is amazing, kind of, this is so great. If I were to sort of give a few examples, one is that you pull back and you look at the bigger picture kind of thing, and you say that this is things will keep rising and falling. Kind of new people will come, new talent will come. One day they will also grow old, and then another new set of people will come. I'm not competing with anyone. I'm cooperating, I'm collaborating, or I'm just witnessing a lot of people come and go, which makes it kind of so much nicer to sort of work with people or appreciate people for who they are. The third is you kind of step back and you say, well, how can I serve this community? I think that is the other question that we need to ask, because sometimes we get very caught in me, the professional, as in me, the person who's also part of the community. I have got a lot from this community. I have to give back to the community also, like what you're doing with the podcast. So I think it's a bit like that. It's a give and take. Life is a lot of give and take. So I think that's the way to stay relevant. Travel, again, going back to the question on creativity, how do you become creative? How do you stop the sort of negativity from, I think all of that. kind of reclaim your freedom. That's the whole thing.
Lovely. Jay, I'm actually loving your takes because they are very not so straightforward. You have a very philosophical angle and a very counterintuitive angle to a lot of things that you say. But that being said, Jay, I know that DesignUp is very, very close to you. So
Yep.
a couple of questions on that I
Sure.
definitely want to ask you. I want to know, Jay, 3 learnings from DesignUp.
Okay. One is about patience. When you get to do a project which will happen only 2 days in a year, and you don't have a chance to redo it again for another 363 days, then you got to plan very, very, very well. But you also have to have the patience to say, okay, I couldn't do this or this went wrong. I have a chance next year. So I'll have to wait all that year. So that patience is kind of something, it teaches you patience. That's a huge way. It also teaches you to think really long term. So I'm a big believer in what Naval Ravikant calls this playing the long game. So I think he talks about disproportionate return on relationships, on everything. When you learn to wait, which is again going back to patience, when you learn to play the long game, it's not here today, gone tomorrow. It will be next year. Will be 10 years of designer. I'm already beginning to feel it's very old, but it has taken so much of time to refine and think through it and think through each of them and break it down into parts and say it's such a big scale. You are so responsible. Again, I'm going back to that whole idea about taking ownership. People are coming, you are a host, and 1,000 people are coming. So how do you make sure it's as right as it can be? That's the second one. The third one is something we have all heard about, but DesignUp has made me really live it and experience it. Not just me, but the people who work with it or people who have been to DesignUp. And this is that very popular saying, which is that your network is your net worth. If there is something which has proved it for me and people who have worked very closely with me in DesignUp, then it is this saying. Because over a period of time, we have seen those return on relationships. And by that, I just don't mean it in a very crass monetization way, but in a beautiful way where people have found jobs, people have found their calling, people have given up their careers to pursue something. In year one of DesignUp, we had this lady called Vidisha Hegde. She came from engineering, quant background, everything, kind of very different sort of world, disillusioned and wanted to look at what next. She discovered her calling that, okay, I can do user research or UX research or something like that. She is now the head of insights for India, Southeast Asia, Middle East for Spotify. So DesignUp in a way helped her kind of figure out, ye bhi kar sakte hain. Of course, kudos to her that she took the step, but in a way it was a trigger, it ignited a spark somewhere. So there are so many of those stories. People have met and married after DesignUp. People have found jobs, bosses have found their kind of followers, so on and so forth. So I think that is the beauty of real life example of your network is indeed your network.
Wow, this is huge. I think maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, but it must be so gratifying to not just listening to people talk about the conference and how good it was, but more so hearing about these stories. I'm sure that was definitely be more gratifying than me saying, "Hey, DesignUp was a great fest."
Right. I think
to
it's
attend.
when someone came and told me that, hey, you know what? I met my husband at DesignUp. Oh wow, I didn't realize that.
All right. So, Jay, while DesignUp is the largest design and tech conference in Southeast Asia, I want to know what is the exact problem that you are trying to solve through it.
If I think back, the problem I had was there were no good conferences back in 2015-16. And I'm not saying, see, good is a relative term. So I'm not saying that conference that point of time were bad or anything. There were a bunch of conferences then also, but they were not my kind of conferences. They were not the kind of conferences that I wanted to go to. So this is where my problem was that, hey, I want to I want to be at a conference that I would pay money to go to.
Yeah.
And whereas I never thought, okay, so I had approached Adobe saying that you do Adobe Max in Los Angeles and it's a huge one. Why don't you bring it to India or have an Indian version of it? Adobe kind of like, as large companies do, go through a lot of different channels and levels and layers and all of that. Nothing eventually happened, and I'm so glad nothing happened. Then I was part of IXDA, the Interaction Design Association, and I was the Asia Oceania head. And I told them that let's do IXDA India or Southeast Asia or Asia sort of thing. Then also they said, why don't you do your stuff? I mean, you can do whatever you want to do, but we're not, supporting you on that sense.
Yeah.
Again, thankful that they didn't. So that was probably the problem. It was as if I am solving my problem. That's the conference I want to go to. So, but if I look back, what we were trying to solve for is a very eclectic conference. So it should not be just about enterprise UX design, which is like such a siloed thing. It should be much more encompassing. So we have had all sorts of people coming into DesignUp, people who have written a book on ecology and journalists and digital anthropologists, people who have done radio stations in Garhwal and Kumaon, to all sorts of very, very diverse stories. They tie in with technology in some way, but they tie in from the point of view of humanizing technology. That is the sort of core part of it. My team, the director team that we have at DesignUp recently reminded me that, we talk so much about taste nowadays because of AI coming in, but curating DesignUp is all about taste. It's about curating a tasteful conference.
Yeah.
I can always put that word saying, well, if you come to DesignUp, you got taste. But that's my take on. But I think we'll stick with the problem part. Solving a problem was the conference I want to go to. So
Wow. All right. No, that's interesting because I definitely see what you're trying to bring to the table with the conference. And that being said, I'm sure Adobe is now regretting a little bit of why they didn't do that conference that you had suggested with you.
I'm sure they're not. They're probably like very large, and they've been a big supporter always. So
Yeah, but because
they always keep supporting.
gratifying to see them as sponsors now.
Sponsors. They're actually happy probably that they don't have to take on the headache.
They're still
But
here to
they're
be
still
there.
very much part of it.
Oh, love it. Yeah, that's a good take. DesignUp in itself, and as you spoke, your network is your net worth. And DesignUp is not just about being in a conference, but also a community of sorts.
Yep.
In your eyes, why should someone be a part of a community?
Communities are very interesting places to learn, to grow. This is where you see other people like you, your peers, maybe people older to you. Sometimes you might not have access to the head of design of a company, but as a part of the community, you might be able to access them. Some very senior people or mid-level people that you might be a little afraid to go and ask.
Yeah.
You suddenly realize they are part of that community. Or even people you lost in touch with, or your peers that you went to design school with, you might find them in the community. I think apart from design schools or blogs or whatever, blogs are great, watching videos are great, but a community is a real lived experience, which is where you learn a lot more. At NIT, we used to talk about a lot of learning happens under the tree and not in the classroom, a bit like Shanti Niketan of sorts. And this is exactly what happens. A lot of learning happens over informal, unstructured, agenda-less communication. Sort of.
Yeah.
So in a way, while you are coming for a conference like DesignUp, the side benefit is that you get into this conversation which you never thought about. But you tend to meet people, you make connections, you make whatever friends, etc., etc. It's like
You never
saying
know what
that
happens.
you go to a college, and in the college you went to study God knows what, physics, let's say. But you end up meeting your future wife in the college. That was the residual benefit of going to college.
Yeah.
But that might have been the most important benefit of going to college, sort of thing. So that's where.
Yeah, you never know. Like I said in between, you never know what can happen.
Exactly, yeah.
No, love it. So, Jay, we spoke about DesignUp and your leadership and maybe a small piece on AI. I want to talk about some general thoughts that you may have about growing designers for now. Uh, First, I want to understand what, in your opinion, and because you've worked with many different teams and cultures, what do Indian designers, or what perspective do Indian designers bring to the global design table that's different?
Interesting one. I think Indian designers juggle a lot with complexity. They're naturally kind of born with that.
Okay.
Firstly, the environment itself is so complex and so much of chaos is out there. So they have a natural ability to deal with much more complexity. Their brains don't get fried up quickly.
Yeah.
Secondly, is the understanding of so many different languages and models of thinking and cohorts and so on and so forth, which makes it easy for them to deal with chaos, complexity, multi-level sort of thing. I think a lot of the same similar thing goes for people in Southeast Asia as well. They are dealing with information overload, language overload, cultural overload, sensory overload. So I think overload is the key word here.
Yeah. All right. No, I love that take. And the next question I'm going to ask you is something that someone asked me, but I'm going to transfer it to you.
Okay.
So, so when does, or I will rather say, does knowing a little bit too much about the user actually start hindering creativity? Do you agree or not? And if yes or no, why?
I don't think it's necessarily about knowing too much about the user. I mean, of course, the fundamental thing is: are you over analyzing? Are you overthinking the problem? The issue also is that when we design, okay, we rarely design something which is meant for 30 users. We usually do, and if you have very 30 homogeneous users who you know very, very well about, and these are maybe high value, high paying customers, maybe it makes sense to go deeper down and know them very, very well. And in that case, it might not obstruct your creativity. But if you are designing for 1 million people, you might have so many cohorts of users. You cannot fuss over a few cohorts and forget the others.
Yeah.
You might prioritize some more and some less, but people are changing. Culture is changing, dynamics are changing. So you really can't. But where I think the question is very relevant is don't get caught up in overthinking the problem. I do see this with a lot of very young designers, especially, is that they over their research phase, they overanalyze. They go into like, oh my God, this is the user, and they go into such depth and they create so many personas and this and a day in the life and all of that. At the synthesis stage, it doesn't come together. It just falls apart. So this is where I think you need to ask yourself, are you probably overthinking one part and not being able to translate into a design which is more universal in nature?
So, a couple of questions, Jay, for you. And this is something that a lot of designers genuinely want to know.
Right.
What is Jay Datta looking for in a designer's portfolio? Maybe two things that Jay Datta is looking for in a designer's portfolio beyond their skills. Something that makes them stand apart.
Right. One thing which is little hard to find is and hard to find in the sense hard to fathom from the portfolio always. But when you have conversations around the work, around the portfolio, one thing I always look for is curiosity. You may not have knowledge, you may not have the skill, but you are curious. The second one, which is probably harder to also understand, is someone who takes ownership. And I'm not using the word hardworking because you may be smart working, you take ownership, and you said you will do it, you delivered it. Maybe you worked 1 hour, maybe you worked 11 hours in the night, doesn't matter. But you said you will do it and you did it. And there are many ways leading up to the portfolio, leading up to the conversation to understand how does someone come across as being able to, willing to take that ownership. So yeah, these two things I look for.
No, I think I genuinely relate a lot to curiosity. That's something that I look for in a person as well. Whoever I want to hire, I think if they're curious, more than just the ability to actually know how to solve the problem, they should have that ability to you know what, I'll figure it out. I'll figure out how to solve the problem.
Exactly, yeah.
That attitude is so empowering.
True, yeah.
That makes you feel like, oh, you know what, this guy will do it. You know,
Exactly,
they may
yeah.
not do it the right way. They may not do the best work out there, but
Yeah.
they will do something.
True,
And
yeah.
they will come back to us. And the second part, sorry,
Yeah.
I'm cutting you, but
No,
the
no,
second
absolutely.
part,
Please go ahead, yeah.
second part, today I was talking to Suneet. He also said the same thing. The part about having agency, having ownership
Yeah.
is something that he also looks for
Right.
in a person that he wants to hire.
Totally. And this is where the curiosity and ownership go hand in hand. Like what you said, I don't know the answer, but I'll figure out the answer. I don't know it, but I give you my word, I will get it done. I take ownership, I'll get it done. So
Exactly.
that's the one kind of it.
Oh, brilliant. So, Jay, what I want to know from you is, if you had to design a curriculum for design leaders
Yep.
and students, what is that one thing that you would add that no other school is teaching?
I would add one thing which we never learn at school or in college or anywhere else, and India is a land for that, is thinking about thinking. Because for me, this is the most important part which we overlook. We think, like I was telling earlier, radio station in our head, we don't know where the thinking comes from, and sometimes it leads us in all directions. This is the land of, yoga and Buddha and meditation and everything else, with such powerful tools that we have thought through, our kind of people ahead of us have thought through. And yet we don't think about thinking, because this is what will help us make good choices, decisions, control the narrative in our head, do better storytelling, or rethink our narratives per se. So yeah, one thing, thinking about thinking.
No, that's very beautiful. Like I was saying, I was reading this book, and maybe I will share that with
Yeah.
you. It's a genuinely very beautiful book. You should read it, and this exactly tells you how can you take a back seat and just think, observe how you are thinking.
Yeah.
Is something that you also spend
Right.
a lot on. But I think one last thing, Jay, to know from you is there any contradictory advice that you would want to give to young designers out there?
The typical contra advice, maybe for designers, young designers of today, is don't rush. Because I do see people in a hurry to get into a certain level, certain title, certain position, certain car, and do it fast. The idea is to focus on your craft, to focus on your thinking, to focus on your work per se. There's a beautiful saying by Alan Watts, who's a philosopher who's made Eastern philosophy much more accessible for Western audiences. And he talks about when you listen to music, you're not waiting for the music to end. You enjoy the music. And he says, what's the hurry? I mean, if you hurry too much, you reach the gravestone much faster. So take it easy, take it slowly, we'll get there. And a great friend of mine, Italian guy, says that in Italy, when you're about 50, you start to become a master, which is simply similar to what Japanese think about. So I think, yeah, go slow.
All right. No, I think extremely important. But with that, Jay, ends the episode for Behind the Screens. I thank you so much for being here. You've been genuinely very kind, and I won't say it on camera why, but you've been very kind today. But thank you so much for adjusting and being there. It was beautiful talking to you.
Same here. Great speaking with you guys, and yeah, lovely. Thank you for inviting me here. And very interesting setup for those of you who cannot see beyond the camera. But really appreciate all that you guys have done. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jay.